Hey guys, I'm Craxton. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're reacting to the messed up origins of Ashanti. I hope I'm saying the name right. The Spider God by John Solo. I've been watching a lot of his videos recently. I've really been enjoying them. I love the way he's explored mythology. I think he's like a fresh a breath of air on it. You can tell he does his research and stuff and he knows what he's talking about, and he just makes it a whole lot more enjoyable in terms of just watching, most other channels that like who just talk about it and stuff like that. So I decided I wanted to react to one of them, and when I saw this one of the African spider, I was like, I have to react to this one because me myself being, African and black, I was like, I want to learn more about, African folklore. I do know of the spider. I don't really know a lot of it. I have read some things, but I knew John could do a great job on it. So here we are, guys. Let's get right into it.
This video is sponsored by Skillshare. What is going on, everybody? My name is John Solo. I'm 26 years old, and I'm not afraid to admit that I hate spiders.
Yeah, right with you.
I think they're scary. I think they're gross.
Oh, no.
And I don't really care that they get rid of other bugs because I'm pretty sure that's what my taxes are for. That being said, not everybody feels the same way as I do.
Spiders
There's
are.
people down
I don't
in
like spiders.
Louisiana who eat spiders, probably, and seemingly every ancient culture, from the Egyptians to the Greeks, had a highly respected goddess who was somehow affiliated with the little beasts. There is one spider in particular.
I love Spider-Man, but I hate spiders.
Famous or infamous in all of mythology and folklore, though. His name is Anansi or Anansi, and he's got quite the reputation. The reason for that is because he's what's called a trickster hero. Similar to Maui and Loki, and even more similar to Brer Rabbit, he often uses his cleverness and storytelling abilities in morally questionable ways to get what he wants. And while there's no doubt a ton of you who know of Anansi from Neil Gaiman's American Gods, where the storytelling element of his character along with his African roots are heavily emphasized, he has made appearances in more kid-friendly shows as well. In Static Shock, he's a superhero whose trickery and storytelling skills.
Oh shit, I do remember him from Static Shock.
On Sesame Street, he shows up as a cute little spider who teaches life lessons to the audience. And while those portrayals are each fantastic in their own special ways, this
I love the
show
Static
is all
Shock
about the stories
version.
that inspired those stories.
Never watched
and
American
how they
Gods
got
though,
here.
so
Today we're looking at the messed up origins of Anansi. Before we get into it though, I do want to say thanks to the sponsor who made this episode possible, our
And we're just gonna skip right through the sponsor, guys. Sorry, because I am not sponsored by Skillshare. Hopefully one day, but definitely if you go to the video, go check it out. Definitely go do the Skillshare thing. Hold on, it's about to be an ad, so we're gonna have to do a small one.
$10 a month, and the first 1,000 of you who click the link in the description will get a free 1-month trial so you can start your creative journey today.
Gonna do a little cut, guys, because of the ads. Hold on. Alright, guys, sorry about that.
Now, before we get into the stories about Anansi, let's talk about where he comes from and the several different, often contradictory versions of him that exist. While we don't know who's responsible for the creation of Anansi, folklore experts have traced his birthplace to Africa, specifically with the Ashanti people of Ghana in Western Africa, where the word Anansi directly translates to spider. Like a number of other stories I talk about on this channel, Anansi stories, which are sometimes referred to as Anansum or spider tales, were passed on orally for centuries before ever being written down. As a result, the character's
maybe I grew up in
physical
Africa, I
description
like
and
spiders
temperament can
more.
be completely different from story to story. Depending on what tale you're reading, Anansi could behave and be described in a number of ways: as a man, as a spider, or a terrifying combination of those, which I now see every time I close my eyes. Interestingly though, no matter what physical form he's given, it never seems to have much of an impact on the plot. Him being a spider could change the setting from a village in Africa to the jungle, but I never came across a story in my research where he solved the problem as a spider in a way that he couldn't have if he was human. And I think that's because these stories aren't meant to focus on physical attributes. Instead, they choose to emphasize his personality and the cleverness he uses to defeat both physically and metaphysically more powerful opponents by outsmarting them with cunning, creativity, and trickery. So why make the spider at all, you ask? Well, according to the annotated African American folktales, this stems from him being a storyteller. Similar to a spider, a storyteller spins a web that can entrap those who aren't careful. I also think that spiders are a good representation of something that is deceptively dangerous. Yes, they appear weak and small, but they can be deadly if underestimated. And that's one of the few things that's consistent about Anansi in almost every story. Another quality of his that shifts from tale to tale is his status as a god. Sometimes he's described as such, and other times he's a mortal man. So what's the deal with that? Well, the fact that he isn't clearly stated to be a god in every single tale shows that he definitely didn't have a place in the Ashanti's religious practices. practices. That, combined with the facts that there are no shrines to him, no evidence of sacrifices being made in his honor, and no record
So
of his
was he
ever
really
being
worshipped
worshipped,
then?
I would say that you can think of him as a demigod like Maui, a fellow trickster
Okay.
hero who also wasn't prayed to, but was highly respected by those who shared his stories and was a very integral part of their culture. We'll get into how all that also applies to Anansi in the analysis section, but first I want to share with you some of the trickster's most iconic stories. So as you would expect from a figure as iconic as Anansi, he's actually featured in a ton of fables, way more than we can fit in just one episode. I've already decided I'm going to have multiple episodes about him in a new series
Okay,
that's
that's
launching
cool.
on the channel in October, but we'll talk more about that some other time. As for this episode, there are 4 stories I want to cover, every one of them a foundational fable. What that means is that these stories each explain some kind of real-world phenomenon, like where wisdom came from and why children who misbehave get the whip. Yes, that's a real story we're talking about today.
Really?
Before we dive in, though, I do
That's-
want to let you know that
with
despite
our
the
history, that's kinda
popularity
messed
of these
up.
stories, I had a hard time finding art for some of them, so just a heads up, you're going to be seeing a lot of my face in this section. I'm sorry.
That's okay, John.
The first fable we're looking at is titled How the Sky God Stories Came to be Known as Spider Stories. It opens with Anansi, referred to as Kwaku Anansi, which means Father Spider, approaching the sky god Nyankopan and saying he wants to buy his stories. Kinda weird to think that someone could buy a story
I know, right?
since it's not a material good.
I guess
that
'cause
only
they're
one
gods,
person
they can do
possess
whatever they
at a
want.
time, but the price the sky god assigns them shows you how much they're actually worth to the culture they belong to. He says he'll only give Anansi his stories if the spider can bring him a python, a leopard, a fairy, or dwarf in some versions, and a swarm of hornets. And the spider says, no problem, I'll even throw in my mom for
There were dwarfs in African mythology? Really? And fairies? That's interesting. I heard that they're at least like black or something. Like, I don't know.
good measure. That's how you know when someone you're bartering with means business. When you name an impossible price and they one-up you by offering to throw in their mom as a free gift.
I throw in my
Well, as
bitch ass
hilarious
aunt,
and
too.
unnecessary as her role in the transaction is, she doesn't put up much of a fight when Anansi tells her he's shipping her off. Then he and his wife
Wait, he
Basso
really
set out
doesn't?
to collect the animals using the trickery that Anansi is known
Damn,
for.
he is
For
savage.
example, to catch the python, they tricked him into comparing his length to a long tree branch. Then, when his defenses were lowered, Anansi tied some web around his neck and strangled him. To catch the
Damn.
hornets, Anansi threw water at them so they would think it was raining, then seek protection by flying into a gourd he was holding, which
I
he
love the
then
picture.
sealed up. You would think that catching the leopard would present a bit of a challenge, but not for Anansi. He simply dug a pit outside of its lair, and after it fell in, he offered to help
Good
it up.
vibes.
Then, while pulling him out of the pit, he once again took advantage of his victim's defenses being lowered, and with his free hand took a knife and stabbed him in the head.
Damn,
Fucking savage.
Asante
Now,
is
some
a
of you are gonna
monster,
recognize
bro.
The way he catches the fairy from my episode on Song of the South. Basically, he carves a doll called an Akua child, lathers it in tree sap, and places it in a spot where the fairy
Okay, so the fairies were black.
He then
Okay.
tricks the fairy he's targeting into getting mad at the doll and smacking it, and when she smacks it, she gets stuck to the sap. After that, Anansi ties her up, takes her to the sky god along with the other beasties he killed and captured, and his mother, and the god has no choice but to honor his side
He
of the deal.
really gave his
Not only
mother
gives
away, bro.
Anansi
He's
his stories,
savage.
but says he has total ownership over them. So
Wow.
from that point onward, they would be referred to as spider stories.
That's crazy. I can't believe he just killed his own mom. That's still crazy.
Our
Did he
next
like
tale
her?
is titled How Wisdom Came into the World, and I'm glad I read it because I always wondered. In this fable, Anansi is again
Yeah, especially
referred
the way
to
the
as
world
Father
is. What
Anansi
happened to the
and
wisdom?
sort of treated as a god, though it's never explicitly stated. He's said to possess all the wisdom in the world, so people see
Oh shit. Hold on a minute. Sorry about that, guys. My internet was acting weird for a minute.
this fable, Anansi is again referred to
That
as
is a
Father
ugly
Anansi
ass
and
being.
sort of treated as a god, though
I don't know
it's
if I
never
could praise
explicitly
something like
stated.
that.
He's said to possess all the wisdom in the world, so people seek him out on a daily basis.
Well, he does
for
have all the
advice and
stories, right?
guidance. One day, the human race does something to offend Anansi, or in other versions, he's just bored, so he decides to punish them by gathering up all the wisdom he shared and sealing it in a pot. The next morning, he tied the pot around his neck and went deep into a jungle to hide it in a particular tree.
That's fucked
Only
up,
he was
bro.
having a hard time time climbing said tree while the pot was around his neck. After watching his dad
thought it was
struggle
a
for a
god.
while, his son, who had followed him out in the jungle, says, "Dad, why don't you hang the pot against your back so it doesn't get in the way when you climb?" Which makes me question how wise Anansi really
I know,
was.
right?
Actually, it made Anansi himself second guess it. He thought he had all the world's wisdom sitting in his jar, but here his son was with even more.
I know, that's
In
what I'm saying.
anger, Anansi threw
'Cause
his
wisdom's
pot on the
infinite,
ground,
right? You can
shattering
never
it
have
into
enough of
pieces
it.
and allowing his wisdom to spread across the world for the rest of mankind to use. Personally,
You're always
I'd rather have
learning.
wisdom from the guy who wasn't trying to climb a tree with a pot tied around his chest, but I don't think that's the point of the story.
Yeah. I about to say, how smart is he? It's incredible how some of these guys sound
So
stupid
far,
as
we've seen
humans.
two versions of Anansi. The first one was questionable, but overall pretty neutral. The animals he killed were predators. Fairies can be dangerous as well. I'd say the most concerning part is
Really?
his volunteering.
I gotta
which
learn
made
about
away
more
his
fairies
mom,
and African
but
lore.
She didn't seem to mind. In the second story, we saw him get a
I mean,
little
she was
greedier
okay
and
with
a
it.
little less rational, but in the end, he did the right thing, and the world was a better place because of it. While I doubt you'll be surprised to hear that in this story, titled "How It Came About That Children Were First Whipped," he's the most savage we've seen him. In this
Bro,
story,
that
there's
is
a famine.
that
and to
story
ensure
just
their
sounds
survival,
crazy.
Nancy builds a little settlement with his wife and 4 children, whose names I'm not even gonna take a swing at. Every day, he would gather wild yams to
on.
boil and eat with his family. Every day he would gather wild yams to boil and eat with his family. But there was a famine, and to ensure their survival, Anansi built
Sorry,
a little
guys.
settlement with his wife and 4 children.
Once I
whose
get these
names
names.
I'm not even gonna.
Natakuma? What? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Never mind. I think I got Natakuma, but the other ones are just, I think, Kino? Oh my god, these names. Sorry, guys. I was trying to pronounce them, but I'm obviously butchering them.
To take a swing at. Every day he would gather wild yams to boil and eat with his family.
I love
One day,
yams.
while in the jungle, he finds a magic dish that can fill up with soup on command. Only instead of sharing it with his family, he hides it in their attic so he can have it all to himself. The
Wow,
problem with
what
that
a
plan is
dick.
he starts skipping their family dinners, and his son Entakuma notices that he's not losing any weight despite not eating. So he does a little snooping
Is he like a
and discovers
god
his
or
father's
something?
magic plate in the attic. And I'll say that at first he did the right thing with it, and what Anansi should have done. He summoned some soup and shared it with his family. What happened next, though, was a huge mistake. Because
Yeah.
this magic plate had one rule, and that was to never touch a gun wad or a little gourd cup. Not sure
What?
why, probably something from its childhood.
What the hell is that?
Entakuma knew this rule because the plate straight up told him, and he did it anyway. So that night, when Anansi went to eat some soup, the plate wouldn't fill up for him, and he knew right away his son was to blame. It just so happens that the next day, Anansi finds a beautiful whip that he learns the hard way is also magic because he says to show him what it can do, and it starts beating him senseless.
Oh
He
my
endures
God,
this for way
what the
too long
fuck,
until
bro?
a nearby bird tells him the magic shutdown phrase, "cool and easy now," and then Anansi
What type
comes
of
up
whip
with
is
a plan.
this?
He not so subtly puts the whip in the attic where his nosy son discovers it. Then, when his family gathers around to inspect it, the whip starts beating all of them senseless.
Oh my
At this point,
God.
Anansi peeks his head into the attic and just watches for a while, enjoying his revenge while his wife and children are given welt after welt.
Oh
Eventually,
my
he says the
God.
magic phrase to stop the whip, though, and after scolding his family, he chops the weapon up and scatters it across the land. And apparently, that is how whipping came to be a punishment for children. Now, don't get me
That was also the story of the first abuse. Oh my god, man. Like, come on. I know you were mad about the shoot, but that was your fault for not sharing with your family anyway. And you don't let the whip just beat the hell out of him? Like, oh my god, bro. Like, wow. I figured it was gonna be something else, maybe with him whipping like his son or something. What he did, I didn't think he found some massive whip that just beats ass instantly until you say the code word for it to stop, and that he watched like, oh my god, man, that's a mess. So that's why I always say in these stories, these gods or magical beings always sound just like, to me, humans with more power. Because how could this higher being like do something like that, man? That's so freaking like just messed up. Because of you deciding not to share the endless filling soup, which should have been enough for everybody, because you decide not to share it with your family, and your son happened to found it and did the right thing. You decided to take a whip that beat your ass to using to beat your oh my god, that's so fucked up and backwards, man. Like I can't I'm surprised he stayed. I would be like, Mom, let's fucking leave. Dad's a piece of shit. First, Dad's not that smart because he tried to take a pot up the goddamn tree with it. So like, Oh my god, man. Now I'm a little mad at Santi because I really like the deed. Even now I'm like, this dude kind of fucked up. Like, wow.
Don't get me wrong, I don't blame Anansi for wanting to treat himself to some soup or being furious with his son for ruining the magic plate, but if he had just shared it
Yeah.
to begin with, the whole problem could have been avoided and no one would have had to be beaten. Once again, we're seeing the selfishness of Anansi come out just a little bit more. Our fourth and final story explains how contradiction came to the Ashanti and why people hate being contradicted. It opens by introducing us to a man who's named, get this, hates to be contradicted.
Really? That's his name?
In a corner when you give him a name like that.
Yeah.
Well, you can guess what hates to be contradicted's main personality trait was, and which of the 5 emotions was the one running his controls. Every time someone called him out for lying, even when he told clearly made up stories, he would kill them. And Anansi didn't like that.
Oh my
he
god,
made up a
people
crazy
are
story of his
crazy.
own and shared it with hates to be contradicted. He said that his okra plants are so tall that when they're ripe, he joins 77 long hooked poles together and still can't reach them. So he's forced to lay on his back and use his penis instead.
How big is it?
I'm just gonna let that one sit for a second. Hates to be contradicted, or the
He wasn't telling a story. He was just bragging, bro. he was just bragging. That's what he was doing. He said 77 long-inch poles. That wasn't outside to turn over and use my pole. It was pretty much just like that. To me is just crazy and funny and hilarious. Like, that's some messed up shit. I remember that's some messed up stuff, man. Like, he literally just bragging to the dude, hey, this is how big I am. How are you? I mean, I guess he is a god or whatever, so I guess it makes sense. But damn, like, that's, what does his wife do with that? Like, how wide is she? I'm just gonna throw an answer out there, bro. She gotta be a whole mountain valley down there to build him on that. I don't know.
The Mad Hater, as I'll call him, says he'll come to
A
Anansi's
Mad
farm the
Hater.
next day to check out his process because apparently he's got to see how long this dude's D really is.
I know, right?
When Anansi gets home,
I'm
he
not gonna
tells
lie,
his
it's not even a
children
gay
about the
thing,
Mad
'cause
Hater
I
and
wanna go
says,
see too.
When he comes by tomorrow, tell him I broke my dick in 7 places and had to go to the blacksmith to get it fixed. Also make some spicy stew for dinner. I'll be honest, after reading the whole story, I still don't know why that had to be his excuse for not being home, or
I
why
know,
he couldn't
right?
be home when the guy showed up anyway, but the stew ends up being used for a pretty interesting purpose. The Mad Hater joins them for dinner that night, and a single bite of the extremely spicy stew causes him so much pain that he wants to die. He begs Anansi, who had returned from getting his dick fixed, for some water, but Anansi replies he can only use water from the bottom of the pot because the rest doesn't belong to him, and if he takes some of the wrong water, a tribal dispute might start. The Mad Hater, who's sweating profusely and beating the table at this point, yells that Anansi is lying, and upon hearing those words, the spider responds, "Children, kill this man." At that, the Mad Hater responds, whoa, why are you gonna kill me? And Anansi says, because you're a hypocrite.
Cause
You hate
he,
to be
oh, I
contradicted
get
and
it.
kill those who dare say you're wrong, but you contradict others freely. So, to give you a taste of your own medicine,
Die.
we have to kill you. And they do. Anansi and all his children throw the Mad Hater to the floor and beat him to death. It was really a great bonding experience for them. After
Bro, this whole family is savage. That's how I know they black. They're just freaking savages, bro. First to beat it, then they throw this guy to the floor and beat him to death. Cause again, like, you could just left it at him, like, just the soup already wanted him, already was so hard, it already made him want to die. You could just left the lesson like that, but no, they had to beat him to the ground. And they might have took their time with that, like, oh my god, bro. Like, you are crazy, man. Like, I don't know, cause like, this is one thing I love about John. He always gives us these different stories, and like I said, while I read some on Santi, I didn't really know more about the character of Santis. I hope I'm saying that right. So to hear some of these stories he's talking about, it's like, bro, this shit is crazy, man. Man, them Africans must have been that good stuff. They must have been smoking that good to be telling these type of stories. Like they was high, the spider was high, like everybody was just high when they were telling these stories. Like, oh my god, it's crazy.
After he was dead, Anansi cut the hypocrite's body into little pieces and scattered them everywhere, which it turns out is why people today hate to be contradicted. Aren't you glad you finally know that now? So
I
next
am.
time someone disagrees with you,
I can beat
try
him to
to
death.
avoid channeling your inner mad hater and hear him out. You might learn something.
Hold on, guys, I have to do another skip again. Alright, back, guys.
So the 4 fables I just broke down can all be found in the Annotated African American Folk Tales, a book I highly recommend for anyone interested in learning
I'm gonna
more
go check
about
it out.
an underrepresented part of the folklore world.
I'm gonna
But
go
these
check it out,
stories, along
'cause
with
I wanna
many
see more
others
of these
from
stories.
African American folklore, were first collected in the early 1900s by William Barker, an American missionary who published his collection in 1917. The other guy credited with collecting the bulk of Anansi stories we know today is Robert Rattray. He was a British ship captain and anthropologist.
It's funny that
specialized
it's the
in African
British who
studies
publish
and
these
learned
stories, man.
directly
That's
from
funny
the
to me.
Anansi people in the 1930s. Another way these stories were collected, though, was
And
sadly
you guys
through
know
the
why.
slave trade, which
Yep,
brought a number
I was
of different
expecting
African
that.
cultures together in the Caribbean and the Americas. As a result, variants of Anansi stories featuring similar but different trickster characters have popped up. Like Aunt Nancy can be found in the Uncle Remus stories that Joel Chandler Harris collected in the southern US. So while Anansi was a very important figure over in Africa and was how they explained, scrutinized, and questioned the world around them, you could argue that he was even more sacred to those in the Caribbean and America. Because
I'd
while
agree.
his stories may have changed form as they were passed on over hundreds of years and across thousands of miles, he was still a symbol of the culture of their ancestors. A culture they were ripped away from and never got to experience for themselves.
Damn, John,
His
to go
folk
deep with
hero,
it, man.
as questionable as his methods were, showed that it was possible to succeed even when the odds are stacked
Yep.
against you. A spider was able to choke out a python.
I know, right?
because
That's
he was clever,
crazy.
not because he was bigger, stronger, or had more power in the relationship. All he needed was some time to think, and he could solve any problem. And I believe that message resonated with the people who were stolen away from their homes in the dead of night and dropped into a completely new world they had no understanding of.
Yep.
Not only was he a symbol of hope and rebellion, but he allowed their culture to be kept alive. And that, I think, is as good a spot as
That
any
was a great
wrap
way to
this
end it,
episode
man.
up.
Way to
But
go,
don't
John.
fret, Solo fam. We will be talking about Anansi again very soon. I don't want to give away too much just yet, but I do want to post an update video soon because there is a lot going on behind the scenes here on the channel, and it's been way too long since we've talked about it. For now, though, let me know your thoughts on Anansi. Where do you know him from, and how do these stories compare with the version you're familiar with? If you haven't already, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. Not only do they help the channel a lot, but you'll get more content like this
For me as
delivered
well,
to your
guys.
sub box every week. To those who want to stay as updated as possible on Messed Up Origins news, follow me on social media. But if you've already got too many humans on your timeline, follow this little
Aww.
mush bag right here. Because
so
he's
cute.
almost as big of a troublemaker as
I've always
Anansi
had cats,
is.
never
Do you
dogs.
like to steal laundry and run away with it and get it
Aww,
covered in
his
drool so
face,
it has to be
bro.
washed all over again? I'll see you all again next week when we dive into the messed up origins of another famous nursery rhyme. Until then, my name is John Solo, and remember, John shot first.
Alright, guys, we're gonna stop the video right here. Thank you for watching. That was great, man. Some of those stories I was not expecting to just be that purely savage. I was honestly just surprised and blown away just hearing a couple of stories, just hearing what they were about. I'm just like, God damn, this dude. These, these people were insane. Like the whipping story, the what, like it's so cool, especially for me as a African American black man to listen to these stories about these characters that were created from my culture. And I love the fact the way John ended the end by saying like, yeah, like while he wasn't like the bravest or he wasn't like the best, he was selfish, but like at the end of that made him very humanizing because no human's perfect. No matter how good a human is, everybody has their selfish moments, their anger moments, and that's something I think we can all resonate with. And I love the fact he ended by saying like he was a great, symbol of hope for a lot of these slaves that were taken from their homes and who were still able to have a piece of their culture with them, even when they were literally taken away from everything that they knew. So that was dope. I love the way he ended that. It's one of the reasons why I love John. He's just does such a great job at these. You can tell he puts his heart and his soul into this, and it just makes you appreciate it so much more. So I hope he doesn't have a problem reacting to this. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. That was some great. I can't wait for. I hope he does more African folklore, not just Asante, but the other gods as well, and other creatures and stuff in African mythology. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you done subscribe and share, guys. Like John said, it helps the channel, helps me out, helps me continue to grow. Let you guys know that you guys want me to react to more John, and let me know what other videos you want to react to by John, because he has a ton of messed up origins up here. So just tell me ones you guys want to react to. I'll be more than down for him. Like I said, I love he does this stuff. Let me know your thoughts down below. Some of the stories. What did you think about it? Like some of these stories. If you're African, let me know that you already know these stories. Like who told you them. Like, give me the deets. And make sure to check out the little description to the original video. His channel. They will listen out as well. And I have my social media. You guys can follow me on there. As I crack some out. Peace.